In She-Hulk the Sensational, we find She-Hulk as she's bench pressing at a circus, showing off her impressive strength. As She-Hulk lifts several elephants, Bruto, one of the stage men, compliments her on her impressive strength. She goes on to state that it's nowhere near as impressive as her cousin, as in the early days of the Hulk's transformation, he hid at the circus. But as She-Hulk and Bruto walk and talk, She-Hulk suddenly gets hit with hypnotizing waves and put in a trance. The ringmaster has arrived, and with his hypnotizing hat, he's put She-Hulk in a trance, and now she's at his thrall. But elsewhere, at a secret laboratory, Dr. Negan and his associates talk about their plan as they're disappointed to have involved felons in the form of the ringmaster. They plan to capture the She-Hulk for their vile experiments, as in the back of their laboratory, they're experimenting with something. But as She-Hulk is thralled to the ringmaster as she's been hypnotized, he tells her to recount her life. She talks about a gamma bomb that her cousin invented, but on the first day of the test, a kid named Rick Jones snuck into the test site to disrupt the sequence. Now Bruce Banner was able to save him, but he was unfortunately caught in the explosion, which resulted in him turning into the Hawk. Now the ringmaster tells She-Hulk he knows all that, but he wants to know about her specifically. She-Hulk goes on to tell the ringmaster that several years later, she had been an attorney and she was working on a case when she had been shot by some mobsters. Now, her cousin would give her a blood transfusion, but that blood transfusion ultimately resulted in her becoming the She-Hulk. Now, the ringmaster tells his henchmen it's time to proceed with phase two of their plan. He tells them that there's $3 million in it, but first they must test the She-Hulk, so they give her a full body makeover and they name her Glamazonia. Now, the ringmaster is pleased with the results, but one person who's not pleased is Zelda, aka Princess Python, as she busts in and confronts the ringmaster, seeing as she was supposed to be the looker for this whole operation. The ringmaster does his best to calm her down as he tells her that times have changed and so has the audience, but she will never be replaced. Later that day, the ringmaster would unveil his new act in the form of Glamazonia, who bench presses the entire stand full of attending customers. Now, Glamazonia effortlessly carries the crowd full of people, but Zelda is none to impress. But for the next part of the ringmaster's act, he proceeds to hypnotize the crowd. With everyone now under his hypnotic thrall, the ringmaster proceeds to tell Glamazonia to shake down the crowd, and she does just that as she shakes the stands, relieving the crowd of all their money and their jewelry. Now, seeing as everybody's been hypnotized, the crowd cheers in amazement and everybody is happy, not even realizing that they've just been robbed. But as a wooden wagon starts barreling towards the ringmaster and his crew, Glamazonia punches that cart into shards. Now, Dr. Morgan goes to Dr. Negan and he tells him that shit is getting out of hand. So Dr. Negan tells him to grab his gorilla mask. Back at the circus, the ringmaster questions Zelda about why that big ass cart came barreling at them, but Zelda tells him to blow it out his hat as she was nowhere near the cart. But as the ringmaster and Bruto look out the window and see an escaped gorilla, they tell Glamazonia to recapture the creature. Glamazonia busts out the wall and goes after the creature, but one of the circus men state they don't even have any gorillas. Nevertheless, the gorilla starts throwing barrels at Glamazonia. As the gorilla leaps clean over Glamazonia, he grabs the ringmaster's hat, which results in Glamazonia coming out of the trance. Now that She-Hulk has snapped out of it, the ringmaster and his associates attempt to retreat as She-Hulk grabs several poles out of the cage, and then she proceeds to throw them at the ringmaster and his associates, trapping them within a pole in a makeshift prison. She-Hulk ties them up as she's getting ready to call the cops, but strangely enough, the cops are already here. Later, as She-Hulk is back to normal, one of the cops brings her some clothes, but there's something that still troubles She-Hulk as she wonders why they would go through all the trouble of hypnotizing her for such a small return on investment. She-Hulk goes to the ringmaster and she presses him for information. He tells her of a $3 million scheme that they're supposed to be paid for testing her strength, but he never met any of the men that actually planned the arrangement as everything was done through intermediaries. But elsewhere, Dr. Nagin, Dr. Morgan, and a headless woman called Ruby Thursday take solace in the fact that their friend Chanzu will be restored to his former self sooner than later. To be continued.